Ace Bailey had maybe the most interesting season of any highly ranked prospect, with some of the highest peaks possible, but also some rough patches on a team that relied heavily on him and Dylan Harper. As a listed 6'9", 6'10 wing and one of the youngest players in the class, he put up about 18 and 7 with the highest net rating differential on the team and had some ridiculous moments as a shot maker. The flashes of defensive activity were there too, so the appeal for a big wing that can shoot it, make tough shots, and make a play on defense is always going to be there. But his decision making, his abilities as a playmaker, and consistency on both ends still leave a divide on whether he should be considered a clear top 3 pick or someone that has elements that might make it difficult to return that type of value. Now, Ace is among the most talented shot makers of anyone his size and age. His ability to get organized quickly and rise up over defenders has only been matched by a few players in recent years, and when he got hot this year, there was almost nothing some of these teams could do to slow him down. He's a natural when it comes to gathering and getting into shots all over the floor, but especially in the mid-range. He likes to operate there a lot, which will probably get tweaked a bit unless he becomes elite and just earns the freedom to do whatever. But I like the jab series on the ISOs. He's pretty efficient with his dribbles before finding a solid look for himself. He's got a compelling fadeaway game both off the live dribble and on the face-up or post-up situations where he was capable going either direction and has the Dirk fade in his bag too. So there is a lot there from a skill set standpoint.
Showstopper. Bailey's got just 5. He fires the 3. Took it as well. Glad to have you with us. The Dylan Jabara, Candace Parker, J.B. Long. Here's Bailey falling away. Ace is hot.
But it's overpassing. Bailey on the attack. Stop. Fade off one leg. Pure.
But these teams in desperate need of a win early in conference play. Bailey puts it on the deck. Fades away.
For Durkak. I would put Bailey inside of the elbow because he can elevate like this. Over 8
steals. Donnie's 3rd in the league in steals and 5th in rebounds. Yeah. Bailey. Ooh. Oh, wow.
Not bad.
No. Plays even bigger than his size, Jim.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's
shot clock inside of 10. Bailey over top of it.
That's a good sign that you could be on the floor at the end of the game.
Contested 3. So to start the night. Bailey, jab, jumper. Yes, sir.
Rutgers continuing without their leading scorer. Bailey pulls up.
Welcome to New York City.
And Big Ten basketball. This guy in the air.
There's Hayes. Bailey on the break. He's got to pull up for 3.
He is with the catch. Great look opposite. You can see their chemistry. Bailey.
Gordon Stanchion's in the way.
Bailey creating.
From down 7 and playing catch up this entire half. Now inside of 8 minutes and on top. Bailey looking to make it back-to-back buckets.
Now, I do think Ace's easiest path to contributing will be as more of an off-ball scoring threat and play finisher. Now, that's not to say that he should or will just be used standing in the corner or will stay in that forever because he is super young, but for where he's at, it makes sense for him to start off there. He shot a good percentage off the catch from 3 at about 39%. He can get organized quickly off the hop or 1-2, even with a little inconsistency there, and his recognition off pick and rolls and filling in the spots from the corner has been there. He's also been a threat in transition as a trail man and fanning out to the wing, and I was really impressed by what he did off of movement and think it could get unlocked further because his footwork and ability to get organized quickly in these situations is that of an NBA vet and not someone that was born after D-Wade won his first title. He has some success on flares and ghost looks above the break. He'll be capable off pin downs, and he's clearly at his best going to his right. We saw a lot of that on baseline out of bounds looks, and they'd also run this wiper set in key situations that he executed well, again often going to his right. Now, there is going to be an emphasis on him being a great shooter to make the biggest impact possible, and because he doesn't have the year-over-year volume or other traditional full season indicators, there is still some projection in that, but accounting for the shot difficulty and age and everything, he's one I think is worth betting on.
Both these teams get about the same percentage of their points on twos. Bailey, quick catch.
right from under the basket to be able to finish it.
Bailey. Steve.
Now, another part of his off-ball game that was intriguing was his upside as a cutter. I think he's got the tools to be effective here and already was in a lot of ways, even in an offense that wasn't built on movement or filled with more than one significant creator. He showed as much feel here as any other part of his game, and even in the designed or isolated moments, many were still read and react, and more often than not, he made a positive decision on those and often finished with dunks at the rim. And then when he has the opportunity to attack off a shifted or rotating defense, I think that's where he shines the most. Now, part of why he's been at his best on limited dribbles is because his handle is currently limited, which we'll get into, but it's also important to attack efficiently and keep the ball from sticking, and he showed that he's at least capable of getting to 1 or 2 dribble pull-ups quickly and capitalizing on those driving lanes that are already there, even through still having a mostly high diet of ISOs and a responsibility to make something out of nothing pretty often for this group. Now again, I'm not saying that he shouldn't do anything with the ball or that he's somehow capped out at 18 and will forever stand in corners, but this part of his game is definitely easier to fit in most positive situations, and where I think he should look to make his most significant impact early on.
Certainly a guy who can stretch the floor with a 3. Over to Ace Bailey, yet to score, and that's
Another step move from Bailey.
On the defensive side, Ace is definitely a work in progress, but there is reason to be intrigued by who he could be long term. His length and solid movement abilities were impactful when applied. He had a solid steal rate with the tools to make plays in passing lanes and get deflections to turn it into easy offense. And while the consistency of his rotations and timing need to be better before we're talking a true secondary rim protection threat, he had an impressive block rate over 4 with excellent moments pinning shots against the glass, coming over as a low man, and using his athletic gifts on a few chase downs in a way that should continue to show up.
Rebound for 7 count. Trojans on the run. Leave it. Got it. A block. Little big on the
Has it taken away. Cheddar pulls it out, gives it to Pippen. Pippen on the run.
Aaron Philon pulls it back, and now Bailey with a steal. Bailey on a breakaway, and he hammers it home.
On the clock. Out poised. They weren't pushed to play. Oh, not a good look diagonally by Rick.
There's a little bit more motivation with his family in the house, but boy, what a flying fight.
Jonas into the paint now. Gibbs Lawhorn had a block like Bailey. Bailey all by himself. Here we go.
it's the pregame meal for those wrestling doubleheader.
Well, they haven't eaten.
He's also a decent mover in one-on-one situations, especially against more like-sized guys. I wouldn't expect him to be a lockdown guy on the wing, but he showed that he could stay within stride, be a presence on contests, and long-term I think he has enough flexibility to navigate screens in the league, which is a must for anyone playing on the perimeter and a plus for someone his size. He also led the team in rebounds by a wide margin this year. It should be a positive piece finishing possession. So if he can really hone in on this end, the combination of at least neutral defense with the shot making skill set at 6'9" makes it pretty easy to see the path to him being a valuable player and someone a lot of teams could find useful, even if he's got some things to work on around the edges.
They got what they want with Bilodeau and Harper.
Rutgers defense has got nice hands as the night is going on.
Now, as fun and intriguing as some of the tough shot making can be, there is important context that's got to be added to know where he's currently at offensively. He has a lot to improve in his decision making, his handle, and ability to create easier looks across the court, but especially at the rim. Only 23% of his total attempts came there, and he actually shot more mid-range pull-ups than he did shots at the bucket. Part of that was the situation he was playing in and how much attention he was drawing from the entire team, but he has similar struggles pre-Rutgers in being unable to get outside his defender consistently and create good driving angles, all of which led to a high diet of turnarounds and off-balance attempts in the paint. The finishing on non-dunks was lacking too. A lot of that has to do with strength, not solely in creating power, but also in his core and ability to play through contact, which he can't do much of off of 1 foot right now. So when you're talking advantage creation and what it takes to be a star level guy in the league, this is all stuff that'll need to improve to get more sustained success.
At halftime against Maryland the other night. Looking for their first stop of the day, and
A good dinner with you.
Trying to follow his own miss. Ace Bailey, 24 first half points. Going to work on Barnum. Loping to the rim, and Nicholson.
It's the way that they do. It puts a lot of pressure on the opponent's defense.
big-time loss like Ohio State suffered at home against Michigan. Sometimes that bleeds over to the next game.
Now he will give you these moments putting a couple moves together, showing off some long strides and attacking the bucket, and part of me feels like had he had just like 7 more games of usage like the Indiana game, he might have figured some more things out over time, but it is still flashes right now. I will say he's a tier or 2 above Jabari Smith Jr. in terms of flexibility, handle, and quick twitch coming out of college, just for a reference on someone that gets brought up a lot with Ace, so when thinking long term, that does matter. Now the other part of his creation is his overall decision making and value as a playmaker. That decision making did improve quite a bit over the course of the season. He started to trim the fat, play more within flow, make less mistakes, and it showed up in the stat sheet, at least for stretches. But right now there is still questions in his feel for when to make that kick out or capitalize off the attention he drew, instead of taking the contested mid-range pull-up, a low percentage look in traffic, or committing a turnover. He finished the year with a clear negative assist to turnover ratio, so there's clear questions about how much you're trusting him to have the ball right now. And since 2008, non-big man lottery picks with assist percentages below 10 haven't had a ton turning to stars, and that's true even extending it out to the first round. So there's certainly a lot of work that he'll have to do to get near that point. Now from a pure playmaking standpoint, he also improved as the year went on. The decision making and handle is still tied to success here, but he did a much better job of finding teammates within flow, taking advantage of some of that attention, and then showing off a few advanced skips and other passes along the way. So for someone that played independent AAU and didn't go to prep school, I think it's important to recognize his rate of improvement in certain spots, and especially here. He had just 10 assists in the first 14 games, 28 assists in the next 16, which still not very good, of course, but it was noticeable and meaningful for projecting his fit in an offense. Ultimately, all of this that we talked about is the reason I think expecting KD or T-Mac is kind of ignoring what exactly made them and most other elite creators special in the league. So it's not an impossible task to have major improvements, especially if you have a reputation that teams will respect from the outside, but it's definitely a big one.
What they've been for the first 8 or 9 years of Steve Piker's tenure, you just never saw them. Jeremiah Williams is kind of like that. He's played a lot of college basketball. No question that this team is built around the...
And then defensively for Ace, it's going to be a lot about engagement and awareness to make a more consistent impact. There were quite a few moments where he was kind of just floating out there, whether it was giving up a back cut or not giving multiple efforts on a possession, to being late to recognize a rotation or involved in a few miscommunications. It was hard to count on him to avoid that stuff, even with the highs still being impressive and suggestive that he can do better. I do think that if he was at like Tennessee or Duke or Houston this year, we naturally see infinitely less of these avoidable mistakes, and positively, the team was much better defensively with him out there. It's just got to be more consistent than it was this year. The other most important part of his defense is going to be adding strength and weight in order to handle NBA wings and offer more resistance on drives. I think that'll happen eventually, so I'm not too concerned about that part of it, but early on I'd imagine that it could be tough. So this is one of the spots his physical development will be most noticed.
Defense against Bailey, which is no easy chore.
Almost 4 points today.
And finishing things up, we already alluded to this, so I won't spend much time on it, but Ace is still a streaky shooter right now. He ended the year shooting like 19% from 3 in those last 11 games, and in any given game, he could look like he'd never missed a shot in his life, or he couldn't buy a bucket. So specifically from 3 and from the free throw line, he'll need to be a bit more consistent. I'm not as concerned with him as maybe some others, even with some similar shooting splits, but it'll be important for him to find a role on the floor and then start to branch off and realize more of his potential. Now Ace seems to still be a consensus top 3 guy in the class, but I am less sold on having him locked into that spot. He's gifted as a shot maker and has all the tools to be a very good off-ball scorer, someone who can knock down shots, give you those irritating buckets late clocking, could eventually be one of the top scorers on a good team. Defensively, I see him matching up with wings, maybe spending some time at the 4 in the future as he develops physically, and being able to switch some in the pick and roll, and I'd imagine he'll do some of the help side stuff in the right spot too. Now ultimately where he ends up is going to come down to 1, just being as great at the stuff that matters as possible, like the shooting, and then to deliver the highest impact and even start to resemble star wing in that top 40-50 range, It's all handle, decision making, and feel, which traditionally can be tough to improve, but not impossible. And lower end, I still think his size and shot making could find him a rotation spot, but it could be a bit of a rocky start. Fit wise, the teams with structure or core pieces in places where I think makes the most sense for him. San Antonio would be towards the top of that list. Philly actually makes a lot of sense, both short and long term to me. I think Brooklyn could be best of both worlds in terms of low stakes and good coaching. And then Toronto or New Orleans could be in that mix, even with a lot going on there. In terms of comparisons, there's actually quite a few that I like. Michael Porter Jr. is an elite shooter, but they do have similar attributes both positively and negatively. Rashard Lewis is another one I like. He was someone I used for Jabari Smith, but Ace's edge as a ball handler and mover is pretty significant. Makes that one more realistic. You could throw Trey Murphy in there given his development, Kyle Kuzma, and there's of course lower outcomes than that too, but something in that realm is what I would hope for. Ace Bailey is one of the most interesting prospects of the last several years to me. He has pretty obvious upside as a big shot maker that can operate off the ball and give you something defensively, and his highest highs are inarguably ridiculous for his age. But the struggles as a creator and decision maker are difficult to ignore when talking about a potential top 3 pick. For that reason, I temper expectations, but in a class that has a lot of question marks past 1, but especially past 2, it's tough to keep him out of those conversations even if you're skeptical.